Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I am your host, Tricia Carr. Thank you for joining me today. We have a very special, very exciting episode for you. Before I welcome on my guest, I just want to remind you all that we are about 10 days, maybe less than that, about a week out from the 2019 Intuitive Intensive, the beginning of this program. This is a 12-week intuitive abilities blast opener that I am co-teaching with my dear friend Crystal Ann Compton, who will be on the program next episode. And the 2019 Intuitive Intensive, like I say, 8 weeks of immersive education, 4 weeks of group coaching with Crystal and myself. You can check it out by going down into the description or the show notes, however you're listening to this program or watching it, and you'll find the link there. We do start in next week, which this is, as we're broadcasting, that will be March 18th, 2019. And if you're listening in some other timing, just go ahead and check it out anyway, because we have all kinds of programs, immersive programs there at the Lightworkers Lab. That is the spiritual community of which I am a guide and a teacher, founded by my friend Crystal Ann Compton. You can find us on Facebook as a group, so go check it out. And hello to the Lightworkers Lab, because we do broadcast this directly into the group every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And I want to remind you that you can watch this on YouTube. You can watch it as a live stream every week at my channel, youtube.com/Tricia Carr, where I also put up other videos of teaching, channeled messages, healing, and many videos on animal communication. I actually have a special playlist for it, as well as some meditations that I offer to folks. And so go find that, or you can actually find it on my website, triciacarcharm.com/charmed-life. We actually have a broadcast window there. And also my Mystic Arts Academy. We are up and we are running. We're having so much fun. You can go check that out on my website. You'll find it under Work With Me, Mystic Arts Academy. Many classes we're doing both online and in person in Los Angeles. So welcome to all of my offerings. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. However you're listening as a podcast or on YouTube, I would deeply appreciate it. And besides that, on my website, you'll find my 101 offerings there as well. Now, without any further delay, I'm so excited to welcome my luminous guest. She is a best-selling author of several books, including Don't Screw Up Your Dog, and the founder of the Heart School of Animal Communication. She is Val Heart. She created the Heart System, a 5-step program for resolving issues between you and your animal family members, and so much more. I just want to bring her on so that we can get deep into it, because I just appreciate your work so much. It means so much to me, such a guiding light in this experience. So welcome, and what an honor to have you, Val.
Oh, thank you, Tricia. I'm delighted to be here, and I love the work you're doing. I mean, the world needs us.
Yes.
You know, it needs us. And thank you all so much for loving and caring about animals.
Yes, indeed. And that's exactly. If you're attracted to this, just thank you so much, because your heart and your light is enhancing that care and that unity between animal and human. So Val, tell everyone, I can't imagine, your story must be so colorful and rich. Tell us about your journey and the work that you're doing. Get everyone into your work, please.
Oh, I love it. You know, I think it's interesting. Most of us animal lovers, we love animals. We're born loving animals almost. It's like we have the animal loving gene. I know I did. And thank God for my animals, because, even though I'm doing all this wonderful stuff today, I have a worldwide following. I've got students all over the world, clients all over the world, and done a lot of really fun and wonderful things. It hasn't always been this way. I started out a lonely, only child, growing up over the outskirts of Lake Travis, outside of Austin, Texas. And it was the animals that kept me sane. They helped me through my things. I became known for being able to befriend the wild animals, the ferals, the animals like that. And it's like I just knew what they were thinking. I know you probably are too, Tricia, and a lot of your audience. We're highly sensitive. Mm-hmm. And we're empathic. Do you feel that way as well?
Oh, absolutely. That was the empathic message, or the empathic understanding was the portal through which I opened up to understanding the facility to do this kind of stuff with intention, with technique even. And the first gift, besides understanding that principle of being an empath and being able to turn that the right way round, so it isn't something that I'm using to just suck up all of the poison in the world and then, lie in bed for 17 days, which doesn't help. It's not the way the empathic nature is meant to work. But after being able to turn that the right way round, it was actually animal communication, which was the thing that I understood as my first kind of spiritual or psychic or intuitive ability. So absolutely. And by the way, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas.
A lot of my family is from Fort Worth.
Oh, what? Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we probably pass each other on the streets at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was a teenager, I don't know if others have had this experience. It's a pretty dark night of the soul. For me, when I turned 12, I had a kind of an epiphany awakening that took me into a very dark place. By the time I was 15, I was suicidal.
Oh, goodness.
It was my horses that got me through that, my animals that got me through that. So, my parents would go to bed at night. I would sneak out of the house, go across the street to the stable, and I would find my mare Maisie. And I would throw my arms around her neck and cry into her big, thick black mane and just pour my heart out, and I would hear her voice in my head, and she would say, "Child, what's wrong?"
Oh.
And I would just, tell her, and she would always come back with something extraordinary, something profound, something looking at something from a completely different point of view, unexpected, or she'd make me laugh. Just here I am bawling, and then all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, that's hysterical. I get it now. And, and I would get through another day and fast forward through leaving home and working for Texas Employment Commission. I worked for IBM. I went to college. I got my master's. I opened and started a corporation in market research and consulting, and with two of my professors from the University of Texas at San Antonio.
Wow.
And 4 years later, I'm going, I don't really like what I'm doing. This is not making my heart sing. This is not aligned with my purpose.
Yes.
And I started looking for, what does bring me joy? If I'm going to change the 4-letter work, the negative word work into a positive word play, something that I can't wait to do, something I couldn't not do, that kind of an experience, then what would it be? And the only thing I could find in my whole life that always brought me a sense of connection and joy and love, a sense of purpose, animals.
Yes.
That was the one thing. So, yeah. So,
but did you think, well, then I have to be a vet? Because I do have a lot of people who come to me and they didn't even know they could consider something besides, and that's a lovely healing. That's a lovely life purpose as well, but we may not be scientifically inclined, and that's what that is. That is primarily it's a Western medicine, or obviously now we have plenty of holistic modalities so far as it concerns medicine. Yeah, how did you get know that? How did you know you could do it as some other kind of art?
Well, and that's a great question. Because I'm thinking, okay, what can I do with animals? I know I'm going to do something with animals. What is it? And okay, vet tech,
yeah.
Vet, that's fine. And then I got this idea somewhere floating in the ethers. I don't know. I downloaded this concept of, well, maybe I could maybe I could do something with animals that's like out of the box, a little different. At that point, I'd never heard of animal communication. It was in the fall of 1992. And we had two cats, a black and white tuxedo cat named Peach, and we had a tabby tiger named Tuffy Tiger, and was married at the time to a professional opera singer, a tenor. And he had these really expensive, giant Bose speakers, and they were using the speakers for scratching posts.
We just we just discovered that had happened to my husband's a composer, and so we have lovely equipment. My husband's like, someone used this as a punching bag yesterday because it's like dented in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh my God. Well, my husband was a bit of a temper, and I just knew that the cats were in danger of their life. If he ever caught them at it, he was probably going to wring their neck, or they were going to lose their home or something.
Yeah.
And so one morning I get up and I'm going in to do my meditation. And I downloaded that I should, instead of going inward into myself on this, was a neuro-linguistic processing type of meditation I was practicing and playing with. And I downloaded, I should not focus inward, I should focus to the cats.
Mm.
So I did. And this whole new world opened up. It was fascinating.
Wow.
I was hearing things I didn't know anything about. I was seeing visions, getting impressions of this and that and the other. And I was like, wow. And when I finished the process, I opened my eyes, and both cats were sitting there right in front of me, glued. And we all took a big, deep breath and went, wow, that was wild. And they never used the scratching posts again.
They're probably thinking, finally, like, why have
somebody can hear us? Oh my God, a human's intelligent enough to hear us. Wow. But that solved that problem. And then I'm thinking, well, wow, there's something to this, right? This is really cool. And so I wound up talking to them about going on trips when their routine is not the same, and and stuff. And we got a huge change in that. I mean, before we would go on a weekend trip or 3-day or a vacation or something, and the neighbor would come in and feed and care for them. And by the time we got home, when we walked in, Peach, my tuxedo cat, very strong personality, she would be angry with me for weeks.
Oh,
and Tuffy Tiger is indoor, outdoor, and she was panicked, desperate to get outside.
Oh, yeah.
And then she would disappear for a couple of days, right? Like, wow, this is not okay. This is really not working for the cats, at all. So I had this experience, and I thought, okay, next trip, I'm going to tell them what we're going to do, when we'll be back, and answer their questions and concerns. And so I experimented with that. And you know what? The next time we get back, and I had told them, we'll be back around 5:00 Sunday afternoon. We walk in the door, and the cats are like, oh, hey, hi, how are you? How was your trip? And Tuffy Tiger's like, hey, great to see you. Purr, purr, purr. Hey, could I go outside now? And she'd go out for like 15 minutes. And then she's like, can I come back in? Okay, I want to, I want to talk about what happened and how are you and all that. I'm like, wow. And no anger, Peach isn't jumping up and biting me at random points just because she's still pissed,
Yeah.
It was huge. It was huge. So, and so fast forward, a couple of months later, I'm working with a friend of mine who does extraordinary neuromuscular body work with people and with animals. Her specialty was horses. And she had horses, and one of her horses had this huge knot, bigger than my fist on her hip. And I'm hanging out with her, and it's a blustery, kind of rainy, cold January, Texas, San Antonio, Texas kind of day. And it's just the three of us. The horse, the Black Beauty Percheron mare, her name was Valkyrie. And so it's just Charlene and me and Valkyrie, and we're just chatting. And Charlene's working on this knot, and it is not budging. It's like concrete in this mare's hip. And at one point, I heard Valkyrie speak to me just as clearly as I hope you can hear me today. And she had a comment about what we were talking about, and it made total sense. And I told Charlene, I said, wow, you may think I'm crazy, but I just heard Valkyrie say whatever it was. And Charlene said, oh, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Well, ask her this. Well, ask her this. And so we got in this wonderful 3-way conversation. And at one point, Charlene said, would you ask her what happened to her hip? And I went, oh, sure. Valkyrie, what happened? What happened to you? Right? And she said, that she took me into her memories. It was like a 3-dimensional extraordinary experience. All of a sudden I'm Valkyrie, and it's in the summer, it's hot. I can smell the caliche dirt. I can see the barns, the metal gate. I see the 3 men. They're trying to load me in a trailer, and there's the trailer. And I could feel how upset and angry and pissed off she was about everything that was happening. And she was fighting and wrangling with the men, and she turned around and smacked her hip up against that gate. And at that point of the story, she put her head down, as horses do, licking and chewing. And that big old knot, it simply disappeared right before our eyes.
Oh, that's so wild. I know that is something that is so much like with your Tuffy and Peaches. Was that their names? Yeah, just communication, just awareness, because they are so present and they're just natural energy healers. This is actually, you and I are going to both be in an Animal Communication Summit by the amazing Dr. Kara Gubbins. And that was kind of what we talked about. A lot of times, just hearing the stories from the animals, just the awareness, it just shows us how healing awareness is. And then that can often heal it. Now, sometimes it doesn't instantaneously heal it because there are other patterns or other things surrounding it that are supporting the injury that need awareness as well. But that is amazing. Almost like before your eyes, you could see it shrinking.
It just melted. It just literally melted. You know what? A lot of body workers will say that the issues are in the tissues, right? And for Valkyrie, until she was heard and respected and understood, she simply couldn't let it go.
Yes.
It didn't matter what anyone did to her. It kind of just made her even more angry. It's like, listen to me. It's like, listen to my story. And so much healing. And I know this happens for you and so many of us. So much healing is in the story. It's in their voice. It's in the way in what they need to tell us.
And Valkyrie could feel, one thing I think that set this up for the spontaneous healing is that this was from a different context that she was no longer in. So her current person was not the one who created the injury or held any kind of place that would maybe potentially give her that, but she needed to make sure it was known. This had happened to me, and these are my ground rules. Please pay me respect. And as she could feel your heart's having the compassion and the respect about it, she's like, okay, good. We can move on now. You know what I mean? Like the body just took care of it. That's what seems to make a lot of sense to me, how that spontaneous healing happened. I wanted to point that out because if we don't experience spontaneous healing with our animals, it doesn't mean that you're bad or you've done something wrong. There's a whole universe surrounding the reason that we have the lessons that we have and how they're showing up at the time.
Yes. Well, I call that the human animal body mind connection.
Yes.
And it's quite the phenomenon. It's where our animals mirror and reflect and act out our stuff, our wounds, our stress, our disease, our illnesses, our injuries, those kinds of things. I remember a client I had once, she brought me in her little, I think it was a dachshund. She had gone paralyzed. Her back end was paralyzed. She couldn't walk, didn't have much feeling or anything in her tail, had very little, if any, control in her hind end. And so I'm there working with the dog, and I'm doing some intuitive scanning, see where the breaks are, what's happening, and stuff. And I'm naming the different vertebrae in her back, as to which ones are jammed, which ones are, dysfunctional, shall we say. And I do healing work with her. And when I told her the area of the back and the specific vertebrae, my client goes, "Oh my God." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Those are the vertebrae that I'm having trouble with. And I'm having problems with my low body too. I've been getting some therapy and help with that." And so we're looking at that. And I worked with her, my human client, a little bit more on that. And we got to more of the root of the problem, where it was coming from. And guess what? The dog starts wagging her tail. And it wasn't much later that she started trying to get up, and she's actually able to walk Once we identified that rather complicated knot, between them, and separated it out and restored the flow, the dog did fine. It was such an extraordinary example, of what we do and how it affects our animals. And sometimes the issues aren't ours. Sometimes they're theirs. Vice versa.
And one thing that as we talk about that mirroring, how the animals are mirroring our, whatever our lessons, our challenges, whatever is going on, with the person who, a lot of our clients that come to us, they come to us because they love animals profoundly, and when we explain that to them, they feel guilt. And I try to say, no, guilt isn't the place to be. It is their sacred. It's like if you could imagine a 3-year-old child feeling guilty because their mom was taking care of them while they were sick with a cold. And if the mom caught the cold, that was the last thing that the mother wants, is the child to feel guilty. It's their sacred gift to us to work with us in that energy. And that's not the place where we actually are bonding. Guilt actually separates us. It does not help us to become some kind of pious martyr that is noble in winning the day. No. It actually causes us to separate and to fracture the relationship a little bit. Do you agree? I mean, how do you counsel people when you explain to them the mirroring isn't something for you to separate yourself and feel bad about? How do you help folks with that? Because isn't that the tendency you find folks sometimes having that response that, oh my gosh, I'm doing this to my animal,
Yes, absolutely. The thing people need to know is that the phenomenon exists. And when we're trying to solve a problem, whether it's a health problem or behavior problem or performance issue or God knows what, then we need to receive the gift, which is what they're trying to do. That's part of their purpose with us, not necessarily to carry it for us or whatever, but to show it to us, to say, hey, wake up.
Yes.
This I'm acting it out so you can see it better, because clearly you're a little blindsided here. But as soon as you get it and you take responsibility for it and start working with it yourself, then I can let it go.
Yes, exactly.
Right? It's not really mine. That's the gift. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not about guilt or shame or, oh my God, I did something wrong or any of that. It's, oh, what a gift. Thank you for showing me.
Yes. Right? Oh, I love that. That's a wonderful, yes, but focus on it as a gift, focus on the light of it. Because we're all moving through things. Now, what about, there are animals are obviously individuals, they have their own personalities, and they have, ego, not probably to the degree that humans have, obviously. We're much more offensive in that area. Would you say, what are in the situation of animals and humans having a really proximate, really close family relationship, how are there times, what is the percentage of the time where perhaps the animal's manifestation, whether it's behavioral or physical issues, is it sometimes really their own, like something that is their own? Well, I guess in the case of Valkyrie, it was a bit kind of like her own because it was from her past. How would you counsel someone on understanding that, navigating that, being able to decide, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not decide, not judgment, but discern, to discern. Thank you. Need more coffee. Go ahead. I'll let you take it a wheel.
I teach a whole class on this. It's called Barometers of Our Souls.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, in the Heart School of Animal Communication. By the way, everybody, I've got a free ebook for you. It's called Hidden Secrets to Communicating with Pets. You'll love it. But when you go there, if you look at the All Courses page, you'll find a specialty course there called Barometers of Our Souls. It's exploring the mysteries of the human animal body mind connection. And one of the things that's so important is when our animals are sick, right? Maybe they're at death's door, something like that. I've had so many times when I work with the animal, it turns out they're really only there because they're trying to help their person face death, lean into transition.
Yes.
So they can make peace with it. So they can begin to have a contingency plan and they can better understand it. They can grapple and start working with their own grief and their sense of loss and their dread and, and everything that's taken them out of the present moment. And as soon as the person gets the message, the animal goes, whew, thank God. And they pop up and they're hungry and they want to go outside and they want to, whatever. So, and they go on and they live for a good long time. But it's like they take us dragging, kicking and screaming, into it until we face it, until we deal with our stuff and start healing and evolving and growing. So much of my work is about healing. It's not just healing the animals, but healing the people, because we mirror each other. We're connected. Right. So,
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Cesar Millan, he's a very famous dog trainer. And he says, I rehabilitate dogs and I heal humans. I think, or I train humans. That's what he says. I rehabilitate dogs and I train humans. And I just think that tagline is so helpful to explain what's really going on. The humans are the ones who need the retraining, really, and the animals just need to be able to have the context support who they really are better. I think
they need their voices heard, because sometimes what they tell you is not at all what you expect. Right? It's completely different, and a whole new world opens up. And then the animals go, yes, I succeeded in getting that message across. My person gets it now. And I believe in it, maybe like you do too, Tricia. I really firmly believe that animals are angels, they're teachers, they're guides, they're healers.
Yes.
And when we learn to recognize and respect and revere them for who they truly are, then they make us better people. That's the gift of them in our life.
Sometimes when I'm trying to work and one of my cats is like nagging me about, come see me, meow, you know what I mean? Like wanting me to sit on the floor. I have one ex-feral and she has rules about how and when she receives the affection. So I decided one time, because she was interrupting my work, and I decided to just to expect it to be actually an oracle, that there was a reason. Like, she's wiser than I am. She's more naturally attuned than I am. And I was actually, at this time, I was working on a children's book that was spiritual, but it's like written in like iambic pentameter, poetic form. And she kept talking to me while I was doing this, and I decided, okay, she knows what's going on better than I do. And I went and sat down and I gave her some scratches and stuff. And then I got up and the next stanza came out, just poured out of me. And then a few minutes later, she starts, meow, meow, and I got up again and just said, okay, Delilah knows what's going on. And I did it several times. And so I really tried to adopt that. Of course, my ego mind sometimes says, no, I should be answering all of these emails right now. But when I do that, when I just expect for them to actually be oracles that are tuning me back to nature and back to love, it seems to work out, And how do you, so I have a question for you about your Heart School program. It's for folks who both would want to do it just for their own enrichment of their lives, like you might say an amateur, or someone who wants to become a professional, I'm sure. Yes?
Right. Yes, absolutely. So every animal lover, you can do this. You don't have to be special psychic gifted. It's not, it's nothing that's, when you just give yourself permission to learn how, to remember how to feel energy, how to use your senses. We're clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant. Awaken your intuitive abilities, right? And you focus with the animals, then they're right there. It's just like this whole wonderful open channel. That's the magic of it, the wonder of it. It's a epiphany experience. It's also a spiritual journey of healing, evolving, and growing. So the Heart School of Animal Communication takes you from the newbie, beginner, just getting started phase. Again, get your free ebook, Hidden Secrets to Communicating with Pets, to get started. And then there's the beginning course, the Advanced Animal Talk Mastery course. We have a fabulous Animal Talk Coaching and Mastery Club with master classes and Q&As and we have well over 100 animals to practice with now that are animal teachers. It's an extraordinary experience. And when you get good at it, and if you feel the call, the universe is saying, this is what you're meant to do. Then there's also the GoPro business building program for professional animal communicators. So it takes you all the way through all the steps as far as you want to go, as far as your heart, as far as your calling, as far as your love and your passion will take you.
That's wonderful. You know, often I'll tell people that it kind of can be easier to begin practicing with animals that are not your own family, because the animals who are your family, you are communicating with them, and their voices, their energy are very native to you. And so it can kind of be easier to start to practice the technique with animals whose energy is more foreign to your experience. How do you feel about that? Does that ring true to you, or do you think that it works really well to start with your own animals in your family? Or I guess maybe, or, you know, or any other, how do you, someone who wants to even start today, like you did, meditating and then turning your energy out?
Well, this is one of the big questions that students are always asking, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I'm trying to communicate with my pet and I feel blocked. I feel walled off. I feel like I'm not getting anything. And it's exactly right. It's like you're so close inside the forest, you can't even see the trees. You're so energetically merged that their voice and their feelings are so close to your own. It's like you've lost your recognition of it. And because of the human animal body mind connection, some of what they might be trying to tell you could be triggering you in some way. Could be, you know, it's like it's whatever you're trying to tell me is right on the tip of my nose, but I can't see it yet. I can't hear it yet. I'm too, in it. I'm too inside the box right now. So you're absolutely right, Tricia. What you do when you're starting is you practice with someone else's pets, because they're a whole unknown, and you approach them differently. You approach them like, oh, who are you? Right? Wow, your energy feels different than mine and what I'm used to. Your voice sounds different. What the image you're showing me are different. The feelings I'm getting are so different. And it's so much easier to recognize it when you are in that kind of a brand new beginner's mind, so to speak, kind of a space. Mm-hmm. So you always practice there. And in the coaching club, the Animal Talk Coaching Club, we've got, everybody has their pictures up, right? And when you practice with one of their animals and you post what you get in the forum, then their person can give you feedback. And that's how you find out, are you accurate? Did you nail it? Did you nail some of it but missed on something else? Or were you completely off base? You have no idea what you're doing. Also possible. But it's like, that's where you build your confidence. That's where you go, oh my God, this is how it works. This is the approach. This is how I open that channel, heart to heart, mind to mind. This is how I track the energy. These are the questions to ask. That question didn't work so good. Let me try a different question, right? And once you feel like you're getting some facility with it, now let's go back to your pet. Mm-hmm. And let's ask them again. And let's come from that space and reconnect with them in that way. And I know all the students I coach, every single one of them is missing something. It's like it's too close to them. They already got it, but it wasn't the answer they were expecting or wanting.
Yes.
That's a big one. Or didn't come to them the way they wanted it, right? They got an image flash and, oh, no, I'm rejecting that. I wanted to hear their voice. It's like, well, no. They give it to you. You meet them where they are, right? You receive whatever they give you, and you go with that. I know one of the problems students often have is knowing what question to ask, the right question in the right timing and in the right way to get the right results. Often we're asking the wrong questions. Mm-hmm. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about this, or we didn't approach them properly. And like you mentioned earlier with Valkyrie, it's like, you didn't ask me the right question. You didn't approach me the right way. I was feeling pretty upset about this whole thing. I didn't really feel like anyone wanted to hear what happened. From my point of view, I didn't feel respected. right? I felt run over. I felt, like what you wanted was more important than what I wanted. And if you start a conversation that way, you're not going to get very far very fast. It just doesn't work.
Very true. Yes, absolutely. I wonder I had a client the other day, and I'm sure all animal communicators get this, they come to us and they say, I'm not sure if it's time to go to the vet. Obviously, it's not a devastating issue. And of course, we always say, I'm not a doctor. If there's anything, you should go right away. But this was like, I'm not sure if it's time to go back again, because every person who is the guardian of an animal, you don't want to take them to the vet all the time and be invasive and traumatize them, because especially for someone like a cat, it can be traumatizing. They don't like to go. They don't like to be poked and prodded, and if there's no reason really to, so how do you navigate that? How do you navigate that, either personally or advising people about that? And of course, it's case by case, but it's just something that's so sensitive, and it's like a razor's edge of awareness about it.
I love what you said, that razor's edge. People need to understand that, this is rocket science. This is a telepathic, subjective, long distance work for me. Animals I've never met. I do all my work long distance.
Yeah.
And in live real time. So what I've developed is what I call the heart system, and it's 5 steps. And it's brilliant for solving problems with pets. And so when I start communicating with an animal, which is the first step, is the H in heart. The first step is to hear them, to hear their voice, right? To hear their stories, to acknowledge them, to hear their person stories too. And we communicate until we come together in partnership. We have understanding, right? The second step, oh, thank you. That's brilliant.
We have a graphic for the listeners. We just put a graphic up of the acronym.
I love it. So the second step is the E. And this is the heart system. What you're seeing here is the heart system when we're learning how to communicate. So hearing them, expressing what we're getting, exploring it, right? The A is to access and awaken. And I love this work because we're really all about awakening animal lovers into a conscious journey, right? It's awakened animal lovers to know who animals truly are. And then the R is to remove what's in the way, barriers, limitations, those kinds of things. And the T is you are having a great time talking. like your best friend, right? So the heart system for solving problems with pets is similar. We first start with a conversation, because where do you start to solve any kind of a problem? The conversation, right? You talk, you understand each other, you have a heart to heart, a meeting of the minds. Even if you wind up agreeing to disagree, at least you better understand each other, right? You have a better commonality. The second one is in the solving problems with pets is evaluating. So it's evaluating what's going on in their body. How do they feel? Where's the problem coming from? What do they need? What don't they need? What are you doing that's making it worse, right? What would be more helpful? And if we don't do at least these 2 steps, what we wind up doing is chasing our tail on a lot of expensive guesswork, which, like you said, could look like dragging a very unwilling animal into the vet, or getting a trainer in, or somebody to fix them, right? And they feel disrespected. They hate every minute of it. It adds to their stress like out the roof, makes things so much worse if it's not needed, right? So, or it could be going the wrong direction. So now you've got a big vet bill, and your animal's even more pissed off.
Right.
or sick or whatever. So that's the second step, is to evaluate. Is their diet right for them? Is your training program right for them? Is something like with horses, one of my specialties is show horses. Is their saddle hurting them? Does their bit hurt? Is something not working? Is something wrong in their body? Something, what's going on? Or is it a connection with their person that's off, right? So you want to evaluate all of that stuff. Very important. The third step is the A, it's action. But it's like, what do you do? So now we know what they're thinking. We see it from their viewpoint. We've evaluated their life, what's contributing to the problem perhaps that we didn't know yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
What action do we take? What adjustments do we make? What's really needed? Action step could be get the heck to the vet as quick as you can.
Yes.
Right? It could be change your trainer or question your trainer. It could be you really need to repad your saddle, reflock it or something. Or what do they need? And it's not just the person's actions, it's also the animals. So what does the animal need to do differently or to adjust in their own beingness? The fourth step is the R, I call it relief. But it's also really about clearing the resistance. That's the healing, the pulling out the human animal body mind connections so that you can deal with yours and you can deal with yours. And together we're in teamwork, which is the fifth step. So teamwork, trust, partnership. It's when we're merged, we're in sync, and now we are connected.
That's
at
beautiful.
Very deep level, going the right direction together. So.
That's wonderful. We actually do have a caller. We don't have a lot of time, so let's take this call and see what I know she has a question about a kitty or something along those lines.
Okay.
Hi, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, this is Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. We have Val Heart on with us.
Hey, Shelley.
Hi, I do have a question about my kitty. So the vet said we should put him down because he's got a cold in his nose and we can't get rid of it. It's just part of him now. But he is so sweet and loving and happy, and I just don't know if that's the right move.
Oh, wow. Well, this is a wonderful, thank you for calling, Shelley, because this is definitely something I would love to talk to Val about in general. And we will be, Shelley, thank you so much for calling. We're going to go ahead and put you back on hold to answer your question, because obviously in order to know your case individually, we would need to connect. But how about we connect with the answer in a general way for a lot of us, and I'll bet you'll be able to feel the truth for you and for your kitty in the answer. Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry about, first of all, I'm so sorry about this news that's being delivered to you. And let's look into it. Let's feel into it a little bit, Val. I know that this is one of the pinnacle things. We already talked about how animals sometimes come to that place. Sometimes it's just to be able to help us with transition. And even when it is their time, it is to help us with transition as well. We have a much harder time with it, generally speaking. So how do you handle this? Because I've also seen people who never euthanize. And every time I speak with an animal on the other side, they always say, whether there was euthanasia or not, whatever we think about the timing, on the other side, the animal says it was exactly as I timed it. And that's kind of hard for us to be okay with, because we want to have our guilt and we want to have our pain about it. So what do you think, Val?
Well, communicating with your animal is the number one thing to do. Find out how they're feeling, what they want, what's important to them. Do they feel like their purpose is complete? That's a big one I always ask an animal in this situation, because the answer is if they feel their purpose is pretty complete, they feel like, yeah, I'm about ready to go, then that changes how we continue with them, what our plans are next. Then I always talk to them, if that's the case, then could you give us a cue or a signal, or do you know about what time you'd like to go? Do you know how you want to go? To me, the gift of euthanasia is what I think of as death with dignity. And how would that look? And sometimes they're like, no, I don't want to have any intervention. I'm very happy going through this on my own.
Yes.
And then what about the human equation? So how do you feel about this? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? One of my students, I remember, her cat was coming up on his time to go. And I think a female cat, I can't remember her name right now. Casey, her name was Casey. We had this conversation with Casey, And Casey was very ill. I don't remember quite what she had. It was probably cancer or something like that. And my student, my client said, I think I need to put her down. And I talked to the cat, and the cat was like, I'm not ready to go yet, but I'll set a cue. The cue will be that I will reach my paw out and touch your hand. My paw will touch your paw. And it was not something that Casey usually did. It was not, it was as unusual. So the signal that was the signal. She would touch her paw to her hand. And then my client would know, now it's time to call the vet. This is what it's going to look like. And we are ready, right? And until she gives me that signal, she's going to enjoy every minute that she has left. And and I'm going to celebrate the life we've had together. She's like my heart cat, my soul cat. And so they went on, and she said they had extraordinary days together. They went on walks. Her cat would take her to these unusual places that were just magical. And they would talk about what was there and what they saw and what they felt. And Casey would teach her about things. And then Casey would say, okay, I'm tired. And she would pick her up and take her home, and they'd take a nap, and then one day, and she knew, she was breathing heavy, and it was really hard to get around and moving. And it was hard. And at one point, this cat, who was like almost unable to move at this point, she got up, she walked all the way across the room. She got to her person, she slapped her paw on her person's hand and laid down panting. And the message was crystal clear. It's time.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, goodness.
And so they knew, and it was time. And it was beautiful passing. It was easy. It was peaceful. It was brilliant. And it was exactly the right time. And then on the other side, they reconnected. They communicate with animals across the veil. So she came back. She felt her purring. She heard her voice still. And so, it's always a matter of individuation. It's, what does your cat want? Shelley, we're so sorry. It's time. It feels like time. But it may or may not be time. And you won't know that until you communicate.
Yes. That's a beautiful story. When I kind of had, in my adult part of my life, awakening to animal communication, or to this in a very specific way, it was similar. My kitty, Aramis, was, winding down, and I didn't know. I had been just like spinning, like, am I supposed to just watch him starve to death? But then he'll eat. I just didn't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do. And the vets would tell me he'll let you know. And I was like, that's not scientific. I was like almost angry at them. I'm like, that's not your job to tell me some kind of, ephemeral thing. But one day when I was trying to syringe some water into his mouth, and it was very similar to KC, he had very little strength, but I was cradling him in my arms, and he shook his head really hard. And even though he had lost a lot of his sight too, because he had a brain lesion pressing on his optic nerve, he looked me right in the eyes, and I felt it. It was all of the Claires at once. No more. It's time. And I get to say it shook me, but it didn't hurt. It just felt like being. It just was. And I think he had very little tethering to his body. It wasn't that day that we did it. I don't remember which day it was. It's actually just about the anniversary of his death. It's kind of amazing that we're doing this. The anniversary of his death is in like 3 days from now. So it's kind of amazing that we're having this time together. Maybe it's some healing for me. We are almost out of time, but I wanted to really quickly ask you about lost cases. Is this work I'm sure you teach and that you've done? And do you do that remotely? I personally do it remotely, but I actually prefer to do it in person because I can use my body as a divining device to be able to walk to where the animal is sometimes,
Oh, I get that.
Yeah, and actually, specifically, since we have little time, I want to know, when you have the lost animal cases, if you feel the message that the animal has passed, do you deliver that to the human, or do you withhold it always in hopes that, the animal actually will make his or her way back home? What is your perspective on that?
Well, working with lost and missing animals is not my specialty. I have done work with this in the past. It's a difficult field.
It's difficult.
For so many reasons, mostly because the humans are so distraught.
Yes.
And there's so many reasons why an animal could be lost or missing.
Yeah.
They could be on a walkabout. They could be feeling called to go somewhere else. Or they could be running from a problem that we don't know about yet. They could be out of body. They could be in a coma. They could be just scared, and feeling like, what do I do now? And everything is weird. Or they could be trying valiantly to get back home.
Yeah.
Remember? So knowing what the reason is for them having gone and where they are they in body? Are they not in body? Big question. I remember one case I took. A woman called me frantic that her cat was missing. She had workmen in and out of the house, and she just knew this cat had escaped out the door, somehow. And so I tuned into the cat, and the cat's showing me down the block under. It's dark, and it's like nighttime, and there's a street light, and she's right there sitting under the street lamp on the corner of the street, and very peaceful, very calm, not lost, exploring, just kind of there. And I was like, and so I shared that. It's like, well, cat feels alive. This is what I see. This is what I'm picking up. And so they're searching the neighborhood, right? And hours later, the cat came out from under the bed. And when I checked in with the cat, I said, "What the heck? What did you show me? What was that?" She said, "Oh, I was dreaming. I was asleep."
Of course.
I was not asleep.
I didn't want to be there, so I just went somewhere else. And
I went into my
spiritually.
safe place.
I went somewhere else spiritually.
Here, I was having a dream, so that can also happen.
Yes, it's so true. And I know I don't, it's also not my specialty because, I feel the times though that I've done it, it's really that the animal and the human find each other and we're holding space for that. That's the truth. I think, but when it's happened, there's been times when that's the question. That's always kind of the first question you ask is, are you in the body? And sometimes it's hard to tell because if they're a bit sick or if they're lost and disoriented. And so myself and my friend Hokulani Okau, who is also an animal communicator, we try to say, are your feet on the ground now? Because they also have memories and fantasies and all kinds of things, especially in the state of being separated and feeling they're human. We're going in with their human's energy and the human's like, wow, terrified. And for me, it's been really difficult to focus on that as a specialty is because it is just the worst thing, being separated from your animal. To me, it's worse than when it's their time and they're on the other side because it feels just like devastating to be separated and you don't know where they are, what's going on, So that's, exactly. I have a problem not projecting, I think is the deal.
Yeah, and final little point here. I want to remind everybody: learn how to communicate yourself.
Yes, yes.
Big bold letter. Learn how yourself. Our dog Timmy, Border Collie, he got lost on a ranch like 60 miles from here, and he was lost. And my partner hunted for him for hours. Finally, gave up, came home. And so I connected and communicated. I said, "Hey, Tim, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm having a great time. I'm chasing the deer and I'm doing the fields and it's really great." And I said, "Do you know how to get home?" No.
And do you know that home is where dinner is? That'll get him.
River food. Anyway, but I stayed connected with him all day long, and at some point he said, "You know what? I'm getting tired and a little hungry. What do I?" And I said, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. Go to the first house you see that feels like good people, and present yourself politely, and ask them for help, and they will help you, and they will look at your collar, the tags, that we keep on your collar. And that is still on your neck, right? Yeah, I've still got my collar. Okay, good. They're going to read that. They're going to call us and we will come get you. Do not try to cross the busy highway. Do not try to walk all the way home, for all these reasons why. And that's exactly what he did. And we got a phone call early the next morning to say, we have your dog. And we went and got him and brought him home. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's so great to remind him those tags we have on there, that's like human messaging to one another. So like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys do that reading thing. Like, I don't know why you do that. Why don't you just, and sometimes people have been like, we're trying to remote view for them, but they're lost. So it's like, well, there are trees, and one time with this one case, the cat kept showing us these little green signs, and it was a condo complex. It was like 2 square miles, and these little signs and they're like, yeah, well, there are little signs on every single plot of grass that says recycled, reclaimed water. So, it's like, there's no telling where she is.
Sort of.
Yeah, a little green sign. Yes, another little green sign. Thank you.
Yet another.
Yeah.
I remember a dog. She took off, an old senior dog. Took off, disappeared, didn't come home. Frantic client. I said, "Where are you? Are you still alive?" "Oh yeah." "Where are you?" "Well, I'm leaning up against this concrete-looking slabby thing, and there's this brown dirt beneath me, and the trees are over there, but it's like this clearing. I don't know how to get home."
Yeah.
And I told my client, she said, "Oh my God, that's a new house that they're building." And they raced over there, and there she was. I just told her, I said, "Stay right there. Your mom will be there soon."
And of course, as you're getting the message, you're like, well, that's vague, trees and cement, but it turned out perfectly descriptive enough.
She knew exactly where it was. Yeah. It was very clear. But that's the other problem. What they see from their viewpoint is not necessary. It's like, okay, can you read the street sign and tell me which street
Right.
you're at?
No, they don't know what Main Street is. They don't read English.
No, not really.
But one case I was on, the animal was showing us a symbol that was on a flag, and the animal was found at a dentist office that had a flagpole in front of it, and it was like a Henderson, Nevada, so it was like this arch that was the symbol. So they had an American flag and I think the animal, it felt to me, it was a cat. I felt like she really knew that humans, like, she can feel the energy around it, and that is somehow a locational device. You know what I mean? Now, that wasn't literally what got us there. That we discovered after she was found that, oh my gosh, there was a flag that had the symbol on it she was trying to show us. Yeah.
It's the connected dots later, but in the meantime, it's like a bunch of dots. You don't know what to do, where they connect.
But I think it does work. It's facilitating the connection even so. And I think this really wraps up the topic of, animals' intelligence. Like, an animal can feel into the important energy, and even though we can't see it at that time, we can feel that is actually a part of the journey that has really made it all work out well. Their intelligence is boundless.
It is. It totally is. Sentient, intelligent, feeling beings beyond your knowing.
Yes.
Until we communicate with them, we don't know.
Well, thank you so much. And is there any last thing you want to share, or we have in the show notes how people can find your work, take your classes, and the free ebook and all of the other books that you've written. Any final words you have for folks?
My final words. Thank you for loving and caring about animals. They make us better people.
Yes.
They help us save the planet and even ourselves. So when they have something to tell you, it's important.
Yes.
So pay attention when they try to tell you something. Pay attention when they're acting something out for you. Pay attention to the love you have for each other, because they're, they may be just one animal in your big long life, but for you, you're their life. Yes. They're a gift from the universe, a gift from God. Amen. And treat them as such, and they'll help you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful. Well, it has been just such an honor, and thank you for the extra time we actually stole. Made this a longer program, but I so appreciate all the work that you do, Val. You are just a trailblazer. You are a pioneer, and just such a light in this this natural experience of which we are sharing with all of these beautiful animals. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad we had this time together. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Tricia.
And thank you all for listening. We will be back next week at 11 a.m. Pacific. You can watch live or watch on my website at triciacarcharm.com, where my services and classes are as well. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are. Hi, Shelley. Oh, is she on yet?